In the 1950s, black people looking to buy or rent a home in Tacoma faced a system stacked against them. Real estate agents avoided them. Bankers would not lend to them. So-called red line maps approved by the federal government gave property owners an excuse to avoid selling to black families. They codified bigotry still widespread in the nation. Tacoma was no exception. How did this systemic racism take root? Redlining began after the government created the Home Owners Loan Corporation in the 1930s. The agency's mission was to help get the country out of the Great Depression by encouraging home ownership. The government commissioned the drawing of city maps to help determine which neighborhoods were considered safe bets for home loans and which were not. Race was central to the question. These maps were defined by color-coded sections: blue, green, yellow, and red. The safest bets were in blue and the worst in red. Blue areas, as a rule, were fully developed neighborhoods and exclusively white. Green areas were well-planned sections of the city that had yet to be built up. Lenders were willing to make loans there to be paid back over 10 to 15 years. Yellow areas were aging, outdated, and had undesirable residents. Transportation was inadequate and utilities insufficient. Residents faced heavy tax burdens and their homes were poorly maintained. Selling houses here could be tough. Red areas were neighborhoods where all the drawbacks of the yellow areas had become fixtures here. Language used with the Tacoma map could be explicitly racist. Quote, "It's not subtext you have to interpret," said Robert Nelson, a graduate of the University of Puget Sound and director of the Digital Scholarship Lab with the University of Richmond. Quote, "These are accomplished, professional families, and yet their race is a reason for viewing this area that is hazardous to provide mortgages to." The description of one area called out a neighborhood because of the presence of 3 black families. The description reads, "3 highly respected Negro families own homes and live in the middle block of this area facing Verde Street. While very much above the average of their race, it is quite generally recognized by our realtors that their presence seriously detracts from the desirability of their immediate neighborhood." The legacy of redlining can still be felt in Tacoma today. In one area of the hilltop, for instance, residents come up short by almost every measure compared to the rest of the city. They have lower incomes, far fewer college degrees, and face lower home values. Reacting to the red line maps of the 30s, researcher Robert Nelson said, quote, "It's interesting that less than 1% of the population in Tacoma was African American. How much those few families play in those area descriptions is an indication of how fixated they were on race. It's remarkable."